So I ripped all those couple of things out that I actually still need that jQuery does, and I put them in a library called No More jQuery. And let's have a look and see what's actually in there. Oh, that's right, we're offline. Shit. Um, yeah, for some stupid reason, I can't record. I can't seem to get a place to record that has Wi-Fi. So getting those two things together is like waiting for the planets to align. So I have to be offline now. And I'm using this weird plugin, what is it, for Firefox Scrapbook Plus to kind of save all my web pages in app cache so I can look at them right now while I'm recording. But anyway, I have the code here, and let's see. Let's go through it and see like what I actually have left that jQuery does for me that I want, but without having the bloat of jQuery. Um, let's see. And the first thing to note is that this code is just ripped right out of a bunch of projects, so it's styled very differently. I need to go through and clean it up and make it more of a uniform library thing, so it's not like this mishmash of styles. Let's see, we have a function. It just wraps query selector and returns one object. And then we have the sister function. It wraps query selector all and returns all the elements that are the node list or whatever it is that matches that selector. And these aren't quite giving us parity with jQuery's the cache object or the jQuery object or whatever you want to call it, but it's close enough. And then the other big thing I ran into was usually when you want to hide and show something and you're using jQuery, you just call the hide or the show function. But what it's actually doing underneath is it's doing the element CSS display style. It's changing it to none when you hide it, and then it's saving that value. So if you had inline or block or whatever, and when you show, it returns that value into that the CSS value into display. Well, the problem is if you do this in pure JavaScript, you do element.style.display equals none. But then when you go to change it back, you would either have to save the value yourself, or you would have to do element.style.display equals an empty string, which would reset it to your whatever your style sheets are doing, and you would still lose the value. So I'm getting around that whole mess by just using a class name instead of a style. So here we have a class called if you look up here, when the program or when this library loads, it creates a style sheet dynamically, and then it would be basically as if you had a style sheet class called hidden, or CSS class called hidden with display none. And that way we don't have to worry about the style value. We can just remove and add the hidden class. And that's basically our hide and our show functions. Let's see then, what else is there? One of the things that's been kind of notorious is the whole document ready function. Even though that's been a staple of jQuery, that's not really, it's not an actual thing in JavaScript. It's kind of relying on a bunch of different things under the hood. And the closest thing to it that we can actually use now consistently across different browsers, Internet Explorer, Firefox, Chrome, is the document content loaded, or the DOM content loaded event. So basically, when when we call this, if the document's already loaded, or then we just call the callback, and if it isn't loaded yet, we set the callback to be called when the document is loaded. So that kind of gets us around those problems. And I've tested it, it seems to work on everything consistently. So you don't have those weird problems where, why didn't the document ready event not fire, or the document onload event not fire this time? It didn't fire. So this seems to solve those. And then what else do we have here? A bunch of AJAX wrappers. And instead of giving them some weird kind of implementation detail name like XML HTTP request gibberish, it's like, we don't need to know any of that, how it's doing it, just tell us what it's doing. So I'm just calling it HTTP get and HTTP post, and then those just sit on top of a those just wrap a HTTP. Man, I can't talk. I never get to talk. An HTTP request function, and that just does what you would think it does. It makes an AJAX request, and then it checks ready state and sends the response and the status and blah blah blah. Everything you expect from AJAX, just making it a little bit easier. Let's see what else. And this function's a little sloppy. I kind of ripped it out of something that I haven't been testing much. Basically, there's these new. Well, they're not actually new. They've been around since the whole CSS3 what a showcase or release or brouhaha or whatever you want to call it. But they actually work now in most of the big browsers. So there are keyframe animations in CSS3 where you can say like from whatever to whatever, and it will manipulate those CSS fields without having to run any JavaScript. It'll run through the range of like whatever. Like if you say make the opacity 0 and then over 30 milliseconds make it 1, it'll transition through that range smoothly without having to run any JavaScript or anything, which means much better performance, especially on your shitty mobile phones that run JavaScript like it's a swamp, like it's like you're trying to run through a swamp because it's so slow. It could do that on the GPU. Anyway, even though jQuery, I don't think it even does that. It just has a generic animation function. So I've had to make these two animation functions to kind of compensate. But anyway, if you wanna, I realize I'm not doing a very good job of explaining this, but whatever. If you want to animate a field like, say, for instance, a scroll bar, that's not accessible by CSS. You can't say scroll left equals whatever in CSS. You have to do that with JavaScript. So here what we're doing is we are using request animation frame to do that same thing, where we say, for instance, set the scroll bar location to the left side of the screen, and then over 5 seconds scroll it over to the right side of the screen, and this would handle that, and it would do it when the actual screen painting events happen. So and what else? I think that's actually it. There might be a few more functions, but this is most of them. I mean, it was actually really surprising how many silly little functions I was using that weren't really doing anything. Like, for instance, or they weren't giving me any real benefit. They were just wrapping a JavaScript function that looked almost the same, was almost the same amount of code, wasn't any cleaner. For instance, I was always conditioned to not want to add to a element's class name because it's just a big string full of classes, and if you want to remove or add to that, it's like, well, what if there's already one in there? What if you want to remove it? You have to parse the string and do all this stupid stuff. But for a couple of years now, they've actually had I think it's a class list you can just use, and you say class list remove, class list add, class list contains or has or whatever, and it does all this kind of stuff for us. We don't need to worry about all these jQuery helper functions. It's kind of to a point where we don't really need it. I mean, so far I've gone through like 5 big projects, and this is it. This is like what, a handful of functions, like what, 130 lines of code. Anyway, so I encourage anyone watching this to try the same thing. Go through your own software, pull out the jQuery, and see what you're really getting out of it, because I bet if you go in there and you replace it all, you'll be shocked at how little of jQuery you actually need, and you can save yourself all that startup time. You'll be surprised at how much faster or how much more efficient your DOM manipulation is, because you don't have all that stupid wrapper function stuff. And anything you can do to help the garbage collector have less stuff to worry about is so much better. It just makes your app so much more God, I'm babbling. It's so much more snappy feeling. Anyway, go to our GitHub page. It's github.com/softwareaddictionshow/no-more-jQuery, and check it out. If you find some bugs, report it. I mean, because I barely tested this. I'll have to test it some more, and maybe I'll add some more code, and I'll do an update to this section.